Welcome to the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast, where we explore the spirituality of the Christian child through the method of the catechesis of the Good Shepherd. I am your host, Carrie Mecki Lozano. Today we have Hannah Marconeri on the podcast again, and she is speaking into how we can involve parents in catechesis of the Good Shepherd and how we can help take what we do in catechesis of the Good Shepherd and spread it out into their homes and into the domestic churches. Hannah began her journey with the catechesis of the Good Shepherd in 2011, and she currently serves as a catechist and a director of discipleship. She works with families in the Catholic school and in the parish setting. She is a level 1 and a level 2 formation leader for catechesis of the Good Shepherd, and she also has done the MAPS course through Aquinas Institute of Theology in St. Louis. So that's the Masters of Arts and Pastoral Studies with an emphasis in catechesis of the Good Shepherd. I hope you enjoy. Hannah, welcome to the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast.
Thank you. It's very good to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. So we had you on a while back, and actually it's kind of perfect that this is the episode following the MAPS episode, because I think that was the last episode I had you on, right? Because you are a MAPS graduate.
Yes.
And you were sharing your experience.
Yes.
Well, that worked out.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you are here again. I'm excited for you to share with us. So today we're going to talk about parents, how we can communicate with parents better, how we can involve them in our work, how we can invite them into deeper relationships through this work of catechesis. And so through your experience of working for the church and in catechesis with the Good Shepherd, I'm excited to just kind of pick your brain about how you have involved parents throughout the years.
I'm excited to talk about this because I love trying to involve parents. I love talking about it, and then I love hearing new ideas too about how to better involve them. Yeah,
I agree. I am the same boat. I love talking about this too. I feel like I love our work of catechesis of the Good Shepherd. It's so beautiful and fruitful, and obviously we're all kind of obsessed with it. But I do think that helping involve parents more and more, what it does is it takes what we do in this prepared environment and helps it spread out into the child's everyday life. It's almost like, what we do in the atrium is a retreat, and we're all called to come down from the mountain of a retreat, right? So spread what happens at the retreat into the rest of your life. And so by involving parents, it's a way of helping that happen. So I think it's in Religious Potential of the Child, Sofia, she's referring to like how we need to involve the community in our work of catechesis of the Good Shepherd, that if we don't, we risk producing children that they can only be fruitful in our environment in the atrium, right?
Right.
So by involving parents and by inviting them into this work of understanding why is your kid, cutting flowers and spooning beans and stuff, helping them understand what we're doing in the atrium, but then also how to take that out into their domestic churches, into their daily lives. It helps that hothouse not happen, right? In order to infuse it into our very breath.
Yes. And it helps the parents as well who might not have had the same experiences that their child are experiencing in religious education, in the catechesis of the Good Shepherd, to then be able to go deeper as well. So it involves the whole family. We initiate the child into the life of the church, but the parents are the ones who are actually taking their child to church too. And so without the parents, we can't fully initiate them into the life of the church.
Right. I agree. And I think that there also is this potential to help parents grow in their relationship as well through this work. I know at least that's what happened to me. I was first a parent, and then later I was invited to become more of get formed and be a catechist and coordinator and those kind of things. But I first was a parent. And so I remember sitting at a parent meeting when my first 3-year-old was going through the program, and they did the Good Shepherd presentation, and being so moved by the beauty of this relationship between the Good Shepherd and the sheep. And so it helped me as a parent to see that, to grow in my own relationship. Just a little seed that was planted there.
Yeah, that's the hope. We do a lot of work with sacramental prep. So, like for baptism, I'm bringing the parents into the atrium, and we do the 3 to 6 synthesis for baptism with the parents. And then I pull out the level 3 work too, so we can go through the whole rite together. But they get to be in the environment, and they get to experience it so they can reflect on their own baptism too and the gift that they're giving their child. But they always are like, wow, is this where it happens? Because most of them have infants, so it's so good for them to come in and to see it even then, so that they can experience that as well, even when their child's an infant.
That's cool. I like the way that you use it for baptism prep.
Yeah.
Do you use the book Baptism as Beginning as an aid for that too?
Yes. So we follow up with Baptism as a Beginning, because it's such a beautiful book.
Yeah, it is. It really is. That's really neat, because I feel like as adults, we go through a sensitivity when our children are, or maybe our first child is born. We're like, oh God, we got to come back to church. Oh, we need to get our child baptized. It's there's almost like a new wave of motivation at that time of our life to return back to or grow deeper in our relationship with God. And all the church really offers at that time is baptism classes. There might be moms groups or those kind of things that can help feed that time in your life. But formally, the only thing we have is baptism classes. So that's neat that you are showing them the atrium at that time to help them see the growth that can happen. Like, this is just the beginning. So then, because a lot of us, especially if we're going back to our own personal experience, then we think, okay, so I don't have to come back for 7 years, right? Like, that's the next time I need to make sure I come back. So by coming into the atrium, you can say like, no, look, your child and toddler or 3, like, can come and grow. And then that also brings you into this relationship also. So that's neat that you bring those connection in right there when they're having that sensitivity.
Yeah, I love it. I love that we can talk about, them being the models of the faith, but then they can see that they're not alone, and they have help, and that there's beautiful environment set up for their children.
Yeah.
And we have a toddler atrium now, so I have been showing that off a little bit too, to say, hey, this is also what we have, even before the level 1, that we have this environment as well. And then with the toddler environment, we're brand new. Last year was our first year. So we had moms in the atrium as well, who were just sitting. They would bring books, spiritual reading, and they would be just, in that environment as well. So they could really be observers of their children. And I thought that was so beautiful, because then they could see, like, the religious potential of a toddler, because I think sometimes when you're taking them to mass, it's not the same. Right. So to see, hey, these are the moments that they have where they do have this deep capacity for relationship with God, and they have this extraordinary prayer life, and they were able to be witnesses to all of that, which is very cool.
Yeah. I witnessed the same thing, that aha, like, oh, wow, they really do have a deep capacity for religious and spiritual relationship with God. And what's also neat is I think it opens their eyes to see that their religious expression, their prayer expression is different from ours. And so, because we're looking through the eyes of an adult to see them, are they saying the Our Father? I think we naturally just go to looking for them to express their relationship with God in the same way we do. But what toddler and level 1 and CGS, what it does, I think, is it helps us as the adults see their charisms at that stage in their life, their expressions at that stage in their life, and that's developmentally appropriate for them, right? I think it really helps open your eyes to see the child that's in front of you rather than a projection of ourselves onto them.
Right. And I think it expands our own prayer life, because so often we get caught up in prayers of intercession and such, but the child at that age is so full of joy that I think to see your child so joyful in their prayer life can only open you up to that amount of joy. for God too, and for your relationship with him, because that's just where they live. They're so happy with God that you just feel that same way too.
Yeah, I agree. And that's their prayer expression, right? Joy. That's
Yes.
how. Okay, so what are some of the ways that you involve parents in your program of catechesis of the Good Shepherd at your church, Hannah?
Well, at the beginning of the year for our new families, I like to do a little orientation to the environment. So I invite families, if they haven't been in the atrium for a while, or if they are new to the atrium, to come and take a tour, and to spend some time in the environment. So the parents come too, so that they can see, because it's so different, and you can't explain it. They have to be there.
Yeah.
So we do a little orientation. It's not very long, but just so that the children see the environment and the parents see the environment, because that also helps with questions like, why is my child pouring beans?
Yeah.
If we can take a little tour. And then throughout the year, I have a monthly newsletter that goes out. So I use the parent pages that CGS provides. And then I offer a little information as well, and some songs if they're available. And then, like at the beginning of the year, we've been sending home prayer cards, because we have a big emphasis on have a prayer table set up in your family home, so that the children are able to go and pray, and you can pray as a family in around a prayer table. So the last couple of years, we've sent out different short little psalms that they can have on their table as well, or just an Alleluia card that they can have, because the children love singing Alleluia. And then throughout the liturgical year, we'll focus on what we're focusing on the atrium, but I give that information to the parents. So hopefully it initiates the whole family into the life of the church, into that rhythm. So those are just some little things we do. But then, because of catechesis of the Good Shepherd, we're able to offer First Communion for kindergarten through third grade, because the children are so very well prepared. And I've witnessed that they're very prepared around kindergarten to receive Jesus in the Eucharist. And so we have a discernment process with the parents, where I invite them to discern with their child if their child's ready to receive this gift. And then we have a parent meeting. And then when we have the sacramental prep sessions, the children go in one room and the parents are in another room, so that they can receive the same presentations, but on an adult level. So it's like going through preparing for confession and for Eucharist for them again. And some parents who have been through OCIA say, "Oh my gosh, this is so much like OCIA. This is awesome." Some parents have said, that it was nice to go back through this again. I think it's really good for the parents to be able to know what the child is receiving, the same presentations. They know what their child's talking about when they're talking about the true vine, but that they've had an adult experience of that as well. So as much as I can get our parents into the atrium environment, the better.
Yeah. Those are great ideas. Those are really awesome ideas. I love that you send a monthly newsletter. I think there are so many amazing resources. We have a plethora of parent pages that you could send home one every single week of Good Shepherd, honestly. But as a parent myself, like I have 7 children, I get inundated with emails and handouts and stuff. So if you give me too much, I am not going to read them. So I like that you just do it once a month, because once a month I can receive a parent page. Once a month I can receive a suggestion on how to take this into my home. More than that, I think would be too much even for me. So I like that you do that once a month and give them little bites, right? So giving parents just little bites to help them to understand what's happening in the atrium, but also then bringing it into their home. I love that you sent home ideas on prayer tables. I think this is a huge way that we can help parents take what we do in catechesis and bring it into their home, is to encourage prayer tables and see how easy they could be. I think sometimes I think we get held up with the table itself. I honestly think that is a stop sign for many people when I want a prayer table, but I can't find the right size prayer table for my home. So I think we should collect pictures, honestly, of all the variety of prayer tables. You can do it on your dining room table, like have a basket that has the cloth and a couple items in it, some cards and a Bible, and you put it up on your dining room table. You do it on the floor or coffee table, or you have like a plastic box that you turn upside down to do your prayer table on. Like, it can be simple as that until you find your perfect prayer table that you've dreamed of all of your life, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think giving them little things to add to their prayer table, I love that. I think it helps encourage them to start it. Just start it, right? Or even if all you have on your prayer table is your Bible, you just put your Bible on there, all beautiful. The children can see that. They love the prayer table in the atrium, so bringing that into their home. And I think parents are also intimidated by, okay, now what do I do at the prayer table? Like, I don't have time to do this every day. The kids are rolling on the ground. So I think helping the parents see that even in the atrium, we have kids rolling on the ground sometimes, or they might be in the room, but they're not choosing to sit at the prayer table, and that's allowed, or if all you do is sit at the prayer table and you read one verse, you light a candle, you read one verse, you extinguish it, you're done. Like small expectations, I think helps parents see that this is doable. Or just singing a song, let the children just sing a song at the prayer table. So I love the idea of helping the parents have a prayer table and seeing what that could look like in their home as a way of taking what we do and bringing it into the domestic church.
Yes, definitely. I think that the children and the parents just love that.
Yeah. Practical examples, I think. We also have done parent meditations for sacrament prep. So while the children are doing their meditations, we have one of our catechists do the same meditation for the parent. And I think that that's really helpful for the parents to experience something very similar to what their children are experiencing. So then they go home and they talk about the true vine and the sap and those kind of things, and that vocabulary even makes sense to the parents, right? They can communicate that back and forth. But it is so different. I don't know if have you been the catechist with the parents?
I am every year.
It's very different.
It's
so different than with the kids. Like, you almost have to prepare the catechist to be like, their responses are not like children responses. So
Right. I've even given the parents journals because I found that that's really helpful, because not everyone feels as open to share, but they all can reflect and journal. And so to even give that time so that it can feel like the rhythm of the atrium a little bit too, that you're not just rushing, giving a presentation and then like, all right, see ya out the door, but that you're giving them time to write and journal and reflect in that way, I think is very helpful. So it doesn't feel like a one and done kind of thing, because the responses are so very, very different. I remember the first time they were just silent because they were taking it all in so deeply. And so to be able to roll with that, because the children definitely have lots to share.
Right. And I think the children also have a natural capacity to just accept the gift.
Right.
Like, for example, the parable of the forgiving father, which is traditionally called the prodigal son. So the children naturally accept the father's love and forgiveness of the son, right? And I have found in that meditation with parents, they struggle more with almost, and maybe because they are parents themselves, but seeing almost the wrong of the father, right? Like, or that the father was too lenient, too permissive with this son. So it's interesting doing it differently with adults, because they have a harder time getting to the essential piece of the parable that God is trying to tell us, which is his love and mercy. The children accept that so easily. The parents, it's almost like there's blocks. There are wounds or something are getting in the way of us receiving that essential message. So it's very interesting to do it with parents. But there's so much fruit in it. I've had adults who go through those parent meditations who then come to me and they want to be assistants or catechists, because their experience in that sacrament meditation was so beautiful that they want more.
Yes. We have the maxims are what we use for an examination of conscience. So the children have a version, but then the adults have a version for themselves too, because I go through the maxims with the parents too, because I think that's so helpful when the children are talking about maxims. The parents are kind of lost, and most of the parents have grown up with the 10 Commandments. This is your examination of conscience. And we don't necessarily do that with the children at this age. And so to have them invited into a different way of approaching confession too, with these meditations, I think has been helpful. I've seen the tension of, well, this is beautiful because it's based on love, but this is also really, really hard.
Yeah.
And so to hear their responses is really cool. I love doing that meditation with the parents, but also to see, oh, this is based on love. This is based on the relationship that I have with God. It's so very, very beautiful.
Yeah. And it can be very healing, I think, especially because so many of us, our first experience of celebrating reconciliation might have been a little bit more scary. And so I think for the parents to get involved in this sacrament preparation, in this model that is so much more based off of love and mercy and joy, it's healing for the parents to experience it in that way. Definitely.
Yeah.
How about, do you involve parents, like you have all these atria sessions, you're down a couple of adults. Do you involve your parents as assistants in your atria?
Sometimes, but we've tended not to have the parents in the same atria as their child, just
Right.
because sometimes it's very hard for the parent and the child to be in the same environment together. And so they become a distraction to each other, or they're
Yes.
even worried about becoming a distraction to each other. So we invite parents to come in, but sometimes they're not in that same session with their child, but they're able to still experience and see what their child is doing. I love having parent help in the atrium. I think it's so beautiful. We've had catechists who have come and just remained the whole time that their children were involved in catechesis of the Good Shepherd, and they're still involved just because of how beautiful their experience has been. But then I think it gives them confidence at home too. And so I think it's just an enjoyable time for the parents to come in. I've been told this is my prayer time. This is my time to really be with God, and I see God so very clearly here. But we do have parents that come into the atrium. They're just not necessarily always with their children. And then I always invite parents to come for training. We have level 1 at St. Robert, we have level 2, and so to invite them to come in any way that I can help them go to training. We just started a once a week training last year, and we're going to finish this year, so that, with the busy schedules, you could come from 6 to 9. It feels like a mini retreat, but you are receiving formation. So hopefully that's been of help for our parents. We have a couple parents who are currently taking training right now, because I think a long weekend sometimes is difficult for our families. But then they just continue with training and being in the atrium. Some of them are in the atrium starting out new this year, which is super exciting, because we just started, so they can see the beginning of the year. And then not everyone is called to be a catechist, or they can't take training at this time. And so at the beginning of the year, I do say to families, can you offer to shop for us, or can you do hospitality, bring a meal, bring cookies for training, bring breakfast? And I've had parents and grandparents who have done that because they can't commit to taking training right now, but they do want to be involved, and they do want to support what's happening for their children. And so this is a way that they can do that as well.
Yeah. The other way is materials. There's so many, even if it's cutting, or some people have beautiful handwriting, or some people are much more crafty and can paint figures or do woodworking. Or, I love involving parents in the material making and inviting them to read the scripture or read a little bit of the theology behind the material that they're about to work on, so that then they're thinking about that while they're, painting the Annunciation diorama or whatever. But involving parents and grandparents or honestly the whole community in material making is a great way to help them to see deeper into what it is that their kids are doing in the atrium. But also, if they're able to have something to meditate on, to think about while they're working on the material, it again helps them in their own spiritual growth as well.
Yes, definitely. I love that we have the whole community involved in that, because the children do look at the materials and they're filled with wonder and awe. And I think also gratitude over who made this for me.
Yes.
So,
yes. Yeah. And if you have many hands to help, we're so tempted to maybe laminate the prayer cards and those kind of things. And, if you have many hands, then you don't need to laminate it, because you can have your many hands make them over and over, and for that spiritual growth, or different people make the same prayer card. So you have a plethora, and then you don't have the need to laminate it, which is preferred. And then you have many people who are growing spiritually by making the materials with their hands, which is really beautiful. I love using material making as an avenue for spiritual growth as well.
Yes, definitely.
So I love what you were saying about formation and inviting parents to be a part of it, and not necessarily always needing to do the traditional weekend or even full week model. We also are doing that this year at our parish and had a huge response. So we're doing 3 hours once a week all year long, and kind of sold it as like a Bible study format. And yeah, I agree. That we've gotten a huge response for that in our community as well. And I agree, because I think that parents, weekends are hard to do, because my kids are home, my husband's home, my wife is home. I want to be home with my domestic church. I want to be home with my family. And so doing it during the week, we're actually doing it during the school day for 3 hours. And we've had a huge response to that. And we also really push for parents, come to formation, even if you can't come to all of it, even if you don't feel like ever being a catechist. Come to formation so that it helps you be a better spiritual leader for your home. The pressure is off. You don't have to turn around. If you want to come be a catechist, great, because we need you. We definitely need more formed catechists. But if that is not your calling, come to formation anyways. It will help you understand children. It'll help you grow in your own faith, but it'll help you also in your domestic church as well.
Oh, yeah. I tell parents all the time, if you just feel like this is for spiritual enrichment, definitely come, because I had no intention of ever being in the atrium, ever. When I took training, I was doing it for spiritual enrichment. My dad was taking the course. My mom was involved. And so I was just checking it out, looking to grow deeper. And then I observed in the atrium, and I haven't left. So God works in mysterious ways, and he'll direct you to where he wants you to be. And even if it's not being in the atrium, then it can still really enrich your own spiritual life and satisfy some of that spiritual curiosity that I think that we all really need to have.
Yeah. Or maybe you serve a different ministry, like even youth ministry and OCIA and different Bible studies. I firmly believe that even just the level 1 formation can feed you as a catechist or a minister in other ministries as well. Definitely.
Yes, very much so.
One other thing, a way to involve parents before we finish today, is to help them to see, like doing like a tour of the church that we do with the children, but involving the parents, and helping the parents to see that these are really great ways to involve your children in Mass, especially your first plain children. Like I've got a 4-year-old in my arm and they're distracted or they're getting a little loud or whatever. So I can redirect them by saying, oh, look, what color is Father wearing today? What color is on the altar? What do you see right there that's on the credence table or the altar? And you see the chalice, you see the pattern. Oh, look at what is he doing with his hands right now? So what Good Shepherd formation has given me that we can pass on to parents is to help them to see the parts of the Mass and the things in the church that we can use to point out to our children to help them to have fuller participation in the liturgy and to also redirect them. I use it as a big redirector whenever they are starting to get a little bit more rambunctious during Mass. I use it as my go-to, like, hey, look, where all do you see green in the church right now? Or what is Father doing with his hands? Can you do that with your hands? But I think helping parents, giving that as a tool to parents is a great way to help them. Yes, we want your kids at Mass. We want your loud, rambunctious, moving kids at Mass. Jesus said, let the children come to me, not just the ones that behave like adults, right? So we want your children at Mass. And so maybe use these tools to help you involve your children in the liturgy a little bit more, right?
Oh, yes.
So I think that that's a great way to take what we do in the atrium into the Mass as well, and also to help parents, get through it. You can do this. It can be beautiful.
I love the idea of a church tour, because I encourage my families to sit up near the front so their kids can see, because it's hard when you can't see anything.
Right. You just see the backs of people.
Right. And I'm 4'9", so I know very well what that feels like. And so to be sit near the front and to be able to give a church tour to help them do that better would be awesome. I love that idea.
Yeah. Okay. One other thing I would lift up for parents is to also help them to see that, after their children have been in the atrium, what are some ways that they can, we naturally as parents want to say, so what'd you do? Right. And I remember in that meeting that I had when Ruthie was just 3, I remember the coordinator telling us, don't ask them that, because what that does, the child is think, oh, I was supposed to do something. I was supposed to produce something, when they have no words to express the encounter that they have with God, especially in level 1. But even in level 2 and 3, it's hard to use words to express what is happening inside of us, right? In the atrium, because this is this spiritual encounter that's happening. And so help the parents to see that and help give them words to, okay, then what do I say? What do I say to a child after they finish Good Shepherd? Helping just give very practical suggestions to parents like that can also help them not feel so lost about this very different form of religious education that their children are involved in.
Right. And I think it helps too, you have your prayer time, and this is your child's prayer time too. We have individual prayer times, and even though it's in a communal environment, especially in level 1, it's very much personal prayer. And so to kind of give the child that space, and I think the more the parents understand that, the easier it is to not ask those questions or to wonder about the bean pouring. I get a lot of questions about practical life. But that's beautiful too, to be able to say, well, when you wash the dishes at home, sometimes you have prayer time and it relaxes you and you're able to focus and concentrate. And then this is your child's version of that. So
yeah.
To give practical examples and to give kind of the vocabulary is very important. Across the board, it's important to be able to help parents know vocabulary for catechesis of the Good Shepherd. We kind of do have our own language. And so to help them, what is parousia?
Right. Or even work instead of play. Oh, did you play with things? No, you worked with things. We do. We have our words that we use, very much so.
Yes.
But I'll include in the show notes a link to the parent page that's specifically about practical life, just to help with that question, because I agree. It is such a common question for parents of, wait, why is my kid just cutting flowers and spooning beans and washing their hands? So it helps to understand that deeper contemplation that leads to prayer that's happening there.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely. Well, this is a lot of ideas, Hannah, a lot of ideas on how to include parents in our work. Thank you so much for sharing all of your time and wisdom and experience with us.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode of the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast. Towards the beginning of our conversation with Hannah, I referred to something that Sofia said in The Religious Potential of the Child, and I wanted to quote her now so that you got the full beauty of what it is that she said. So you can find it at the bottom of page 30, rolling over to page 31 in the third edition of The Religious Potential of the Child. Sofia says, "In the absence of a faith environment where the child may live, of which he feels himself a part and in which he feels himself almost held, we risk cultivating hothouse flowers in the atrium, which are incapable of enduring the severity of the external climate. On the other hand, without a place where the child can come in touch with the religious reality in a way and at a rhythm suitable to children, there is the danger the child will pass by great things without ever being able to grasp, interiorize, and make these realities his own. The initiation of a child into Christian life is not a work that can be fulfilled by the catechist alone, nor by the parents alone. It is the whole Christian community that proclaims Christ, and the child must enter into contact with the entire Christian community. The catechist's work, valuable as it is, must be sustained and confirmed by a community that lives what the catechist proclaims." You'll be able to find that quote in our show notes. Some other resources that I have there in our show notes for you. There is a link for you to be able to submit a podcast listener question. We would love to hear from you. If you have a question that you would like one of our guests to answer, please check out that link. We have a link for you to be able to look at different podcasts by theme. So we have a page that puts some podcasts into different series that we have done, maybe Montessori or Religious Potential of the Child, Joyful Journey, Podcasts for Parents, etc. We have a link for those different themes. I also want to point you to, if you are a United States Association of the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd member, you recently got a member memo last week that has some information in there for you to be able to do a parent meeting. So it includes things to help you out, like an opening prayer, a sample itinerary for your parent meeting, and including some resources and a PowerPoint, things to help you out, make it easier. So if you are a member, go back and find that member memo so you can check out those resources. I also really want to point you to the book Joyful Journey, because The Good Shepherd and the Child, A Joyful Journey, because this book was written for parents. So it is a great resource to share with your parents, to share with those beginning their journey in the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd or wanting to understand what it is that we do. I also put some links for a bunch of different podcast episodes. So I put the one that Hannah was with us before about the MAPS program. I put some links for podcast episodes for catechists as they are preparing themselves for the beginning of their atrium year. And I also put a list of podcast episodes that are specifically great resources for parents. There's also a link for parent pages that we have on our CGS USA website and a link to baptism as beginning. Remember that we encourage you to purchase our CGS books from our CGS USA store, because when you purchase from us, it is supporting our work in the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. Your purchase does have a purpose. This podcast is sponsored by the United States Association of the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. If you would like to know more about the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, or if you would like to become a member, please go to cgsusa.org. Thank you all for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks. Go and fall more deeply in love with God.